Hello? Hello? Hello, can you all hear okay? Okay. Well, we can all agree on one thing. It's really hot. Okay, so we're going to just do the best we can, and I'm sure it'll be a lovely day. I'm Linda Reed. Welcome to my home, and there are a couple of bathrooms, one east and one west. I'm sure you'll figure it out. And I would like to begin by congratulating Les Bernstein and Fran Claggett for a beautiful book. It's so beautiful, and the work that they have done. How many books? Is it 6? Is it 7? It's maybe 6 or 7 maybe books that the two of them have been involved in and have served as editors, and we are so lucky. We are so lucky to be represented by these wonderful poets and advocates of poets. And Les has joined the Redwood Writers board, so she's serving the poets from the board, and we're just really, really lucky. Yes. Okay, enjoy your day.
Well, it's so good to see everybody in person. I've been seeing people's heads on Zoom for quite some time. And as I told a group of people who I was at Robin's house, I was so relieved to find out that people had feet. So today we're going to second, babe? Okay. Today we're going to celebrate poetry, and we're going to celebrate each other. Frost has said, poetry is when emotion finds thought, and thought has found word. Today we're in the presence of talented poets who have poured their hearts and minds into creating words that evoke emotion, inspire imagination, and sometimes challenge our perspective. I'm speaking right into that. Each poem will serve as a window into the human experience. But before we begin with the reading, I have thank yous to do. So my first thank you is to Linda Reed for providing this most gorgeous space and also always being a committed listener. To Joanne Rosen, our saintly, most patient book designer, and I'm telling you, she got the patience of a saint. To Sherry Loveler, who made our beautiful, beautiful cover. Not only is she an incredible artist, she's a fairly remarkable poet as well. To Roger Lubeck. He's president of the California Writers Club, my moral support, and I want to thank him for fostering the idea that California Writers Club poets could join into this anthology, because they're wonderful, and the poems that they've produced are just beautiful. To our wonderful Eagle Eye proofreaders, that's Sky Blaine, Joy Belsey, Simona Carini, and Margaret Rooney, who does not let a misplaced comma go anywhere. Last but not least is Fran Claggett, who is my partner in crime and co-editor. May this poetry reading be a reminder that amidst the chaos and noise in the world, there is solace and beauty to be found. And if you're nervous about reading, please remember that you are amongst friends. Okay. Our first reader is Sherry Loveler, who is our cover artist.
What's it? Yeah.
Sherry, you need to say your name and your poem.
Okay.
So that Roger can film you.
Oh, okay.
Well, first I want to say I'm totally honored to have my painting on the cover. And I hope you enjoyed looking at the cover. Do you want me to wait for Roger? I'm okay.
Say your name and your poem.
Okay. My name is Sherry Loveler.
Oh, your poem.
My poem is called Your Parting,
And it's on page 150.
on page 150. I remember playing marbles in the hallway. And Superman, you're jumping off the dresser onto our bed to save Lois Lane. I remember you're coming home with new music, sharing your excitement of Dylan, the Beatles, the Doors. I remember practicing smoking pot with oregano in your pipe so I would know what to do. All this you handed to me now, with countless more, filling me as it once filled us. I stand with memories that will someday be put to rest. But for now, I accept the gift of this burden, the carrying forth of the two of us, alone, without you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Linda has just reminded me that it's sort of in alphabetical order. So when somebody is reading and you're next, come stand over there. And that would be Such and Dreamer. You should be over there now. When you come up, please say your name and the name of the title of your poem. So we're filming this for people. So our next reader is Susana Ackerman. Her poem is El Salvador, and it's on page 27. Can you hear?
Yeah, it still needs to be a little bit louder.
Can you make it louder?
Yeah, go ahead. You guys got, somebody has to talk so they can hear it.
And if you're taller, adjust it so that you need to adjust
Hello?
it. Don't bend over, move the mic up.
Like this?
We're gonna get feedback. That's as loud as it's gonna go.
Okay.
But can we get it closer to her mouth?
Well, Tricia said, yep, just-
Yeah. Is this good?
There you go.
Sorry. My name is Susanna Ackerman. I'm so honored to be here. These are my first poems published in English, so I'm very, very humbled. The poem is titled El Salvador, and for those of you who don't speak Spanish, El Salvador is both the name of the country, but literally it means the savior. And it refers to a moment lived during the Civil War in El Salvador when I was part of a team of international accompaniment in a campesino community that was under attack by the Salvadorian army. And I like to recite it as a declaration of solidarity with all the children today who are caught in the horrors of armed conflict, be it in Eastern Europe, Africa, or our own borders. El Salvador. There are moments that linger in a rhapsody of silent breaths, all-knowing in the distance of time, as if dying and living shared the same beauty. Death and poetry blossomed from the same root. The morning the army helicopters thundered through the village, I took my last breath, circled the lines of my life like a top spinning its last rounds. The hand that held my fear was a boy's, a tiny clump of fingers tutored by war on the stillness of surrender. Stretched out on a field of white flowers, our muted bodies readied for the helicopter's blast. The boy picked up a clump of petals, cupped them in his hands, gave me to smell their tiny burst of life. Tranquil, he placed them in my pocket, like a concealed truce he had reached with time. His index finger motioned for silence, and the scent of peril drowned in the softness of the moment he chose to see. Who had taught this child the quiet scent of serenity, the beauty with which life conquers death in one sudden moment, its petals guarded like tiny saviors in God's little hands? I asked then, and I shall always keep asking, as I search in my hollow pockets for a life to hold, and a distant scent of petals lingers, still stranger to fear, gifting me with only one moment to hold not, but to surrender. Gracias.
Our next reader is such Andrima Banerjee. And her poem is The Summer of Staying Put on page 35. How did I do with your name? Okay.
Thank you. Hi everyone. So I'm Suja Rima, hard on the tongue, so I also go by Sue. This poem, I don't usually write in rhymes, but it just came out rhyming. I wrote it in October of 2020. You hear me now? Okay. The summer of staying put. It was the summer of staying put, meeting our floras on our endless walks, measured breaths behind the masks, the summer we taught our eyes to talk. Beaches sprawled with uncluttered view, amusement parks gathered rust. Hair grew out like the summer of love, neighborhood joints went quietly bust. Tactile senses hit the snooze. We used the networks every bit. Sourdough starter and stubborn seeds became our emotional conduits. Leaves are turning their first blush. Days shorter, peach twilight. I pine for the times of flying over oceans, hugging my parents with more than sight. Thank you.
Nathalia. Our next reader is Nathalia Bernstein, who actually happens to be my granddaughter. And this little girl has been published in Rattle, even though Rattle has rejected me multiple times. Her poem is The 10 Tenets for the Best You, and it's on page 45.
Hello, my name is Natalia, and this is 10 Tenets for the Best You. 1. Embrace. Embracing mistakes, you'll learn 3 things: what should have worked, what could have worked, what didn't work. Now you know. 2. No, you can't control what happens, but you can control your reaction to it. What should have happened, what could have happened, what didn't happen. Doesn't matter. 3. Love hard. It's safe. What should you love, what could you love, what didn't you love. Go hard to love. 4. Be your own validation. Ask yourself, what should be validated, what could be validated, what wasn't validated. And does it even matter? Do not compromise yourself. 5. Take your attention off yourself. Look outside yourself, see what's needed. Try to provide it. What should you do? What could you do? What will you do? It matters. 6. Feel free to live kindness. What should you care for? What could you care for? What will you care for? Be like a love bug. 7. Know that everything alive wants to survive. What should you nurture? What could you nurture? What will you nurture? Be gentle with the world. 8. Dare to be great. March to your own inner drum. What should you create? What could you create? What will you create? Don't be afraid of uncharted territories. 9. Allow yourself to experience all that life presents. Don't suppress. Love, pain, laughter, grief. It's life and life only. Let it move on through. 10. Be present. Thank you.
Okay. Our next reader is Amrita Sky Blaine. She'll be reading Moon Bathing, and that's on page 51.
Hello, I'm Amrita. Most of you know me as Sky. Moon bathing. Rare as an oriole sighting, late night soaks in brightest moonlight, warm steam rising, a delicious seduction. When my fingers become raisins, when I know time is up, I climb out of the tub into the nip of sharp chill, wrap in my fleece robe, pull up the hood to keep the heat close, to claim the light's touch. Bathed in its grace, I slide under the covers, offer up prayers, and slip into deep sleep. No one has said so. I haven't found proof. But the kiss of the night, in the tenderest light, marks and heals me. Thank you.
Okay, our next reader is Fran Carbonaro, and her poem is called Forgiveness, and it's on page 60.
Good afternoon, I'm Fran, and my poem is Forgiveness, and this is proof that it took me a lot longer to learn what Natalia already knows. By the time I turn, it begins with an epigraph by James Hillman. Forgiveness is meaningful only when one can neither forget nor forgive. By the time I turned the car around, you had your helmet on. A fresh flashback of those miles, the thousands we rode together. Now, leaving the restaurant alone in your black motorcycle gear, long white hair flowing behind you, proud aging Adonis ready to mount your steed. I was in search of you that late afternoon, mortally wounded by rejection and my own insurmountable self-doubt. Rolling down the window as tears streamed down my face, my eyes met yours, hidden behind glasses, under the hard shell you had already donned for protection. This was not in the plan. Did you really say that? The words hit and slid off the surface of my reeling mind. Whose plan, I wondered? From the mouth of a seriously committed Buddhist, I knew it could not be God's plan you were referring to. I had come for some remnant of kindness or even pity, once more begging for crumbs from a carefully measured heart, laying myself bare yet again, a willing victim's final mortification at the end of a long journey. After a long sleep, abruptly waking, birthed by the slap of a merciful death. How is it life can leave us stranded so by the side of the road, lost, completely lost and without a plan? Then the guidance of a broken heart and angels seen and unseen uncover our path to forgiveness, where we may finally merge into one great understanding. I still have, my dear, those layers of assumed safety I wore while riding behind you. It's the kind that breathes so you do not sweat in the sweltering heat of the journey. I keep it on the shelf to remind me how to let it all gently flap in the wind.
Our next reader is Lawrence Sherman Cohn. His poem is called Poets Camp, and it's page 69.
Hi, my name is Lawrence Cohn, and we all know about writer's block. There's certainly a lot of literature about how to avoid it. So my poem, instead of writer's block, is Poet's Cramp. All right. Poet's Cramp. Not exactly a block, but an emotional emergency. And those damned percussive bells ringing in the numbness more like a concussion than a KO. First, a catch in the lungs, the light headaches thinly pounding out the consumptive drought. Then, a mawkish vow of silence, a simple retreat from the truth. One foolish month it started up again, during an April thaw. The ideas dangled like gold trinkets, but every try was an unruly verse. The voice rambled on, eating its words. How cruel the muse, when with a flurry it inspired everything, everywhere. Even the textures were chaotic, every cross-out a gender disorder, a rogue thought for every erasure. Later, the din ceased with veritable vibes, no longer devilishly lost in subjunctives, no longer time to treat my scars. Poems flowed through with radiance, rhythms, rhymes, and iambics, sweet words tapped together like chimes. Belated truths became ripened fruit, motifs, similes, and metaphors, fashioned molds to cast images. The mystical onslaught, a reclaiming of privileges. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reader is Nancy Doherty. Her poem is On the Margin of Nothingness, and it's page 76.
Thank you, Les, and all you event planners. I feel this has become like a rite of summer to be here. It's lovely, or end of summer. I'm Nancy Doherty, and the poem I'll read is inspired by Diana de Prima, who I had the good fortune to study with. On the margins of nothingness. And even for some generations, which she explained to me, thick mix of blue sky where one person begins and another ends. It has Tibetan meaning, caseloads of instructions. You could take possession of a person or things with a strong gaze. Talk to them straight from the beyond, of qualities you've connected to, of deep earth longing. Her t-shirt was light blue and resplendent with Buddha image. Why ever, she said. She didn't want a plain metallic piece for her necklace. It would have no more depth than a smoky opacity. I heard her terrors as well as her desires. Highly polished, whether it translates back to the sacredness of the earth. Her hair gathered up in a bun, she fingered lovingly. Right on, I thought, drawn to those living on the margins of nothingness. She had earrings dangling that were colorful to conquer old age. Veiled in a longing to be known, we chatted. Not so bad, really, her suggestions, the woman with one eye, the rings on her fingers, and the striking lapis lazuli, set in silver, her gaze that could take possession of a life completed. Thank you.
Our next reader, God, people are so tall. Our next reader is Linda Drattel. Her poem is Him and Her, and it's on page 79.
Thank you for having me. These two poems are about my children. Him. Our son was adopted, and he comes from Colombia.
Closer to the mic.
Him.
Closer to the mic.
His birth family has found him. They hail from Colombia.
They want you to go closer. They want you to go closer to the mic.
Closer to the mic?
Yeah.
Okay, how is that? Okay. His birth family has found him. They hail from Colombia, all 154 of them. He is my beloved son, raised with love from birth, his birth family has found him. I give him space to embrace his familia, all 154 of them. I treasure him, our family of 4. His birth family has found him. They treasure his attention, call him each day, all 154 of them. We are his destiny. They are his birthright. His birth family has found him, all 154 of them. And this poem, Her, is for our daughter, who is a dancer, by the way. She is an orchid we have watered, fertilized with nourishment and love. Her stem is slim but strong. She knows only one way to grow, toward open space, grasping reachable air. Her gentle bouquet cascades along the soft curve of her arm, a tender waterfall of blossoms. She faces the sun, commanding the light to find her, feed her. She presses forward, single-mindedly away from the soil, as if she's waving a winning lottery ticket. Her petals brush each other and share a laugh. Her lush leaves find the breeze and dance their heart out. Thank you.
Our next, I think is it off? Roger, can you hear? It doesn't seem like is it, can you hear me?
No, it sounds like it's off.
Something's off.
Is the plug pulled behind you? The yellow plug? Look in the power strip back behind on the wall. Does that come out?
No, that looks pretty good.
All right.
Testing. Nope.
Is there an on-off switch on that handle?
Yeah, there is on the handle of the mic.
All right. This is a job for Roger.
I gave up this job when I was 20. No. Oh, that's it. No. No, wait. The head was unscrewed. So when you hold it, you got to be careful you don't kind of do that sort of thing.
Keep the head screwed on straight.
Is that the peanut gallery speaking?
We have no peanuts in this.
No, those are not yours.
Good for you.
Yeah, okay, you can hear me now? Peter, thank you for waiting. Our next reader is Peter Dudley. His poem is called No Returns, and it is on page 82. Don't unscrew it.
I'm going to do this. So first I want to say thank you because I am, I was told to move it up. Does that work? All right, thank you. So first I want to say thank you because I am one of the writers who is not a local. I came from Walnut Creek and we wandered in just as they were starting to ring the bell for this, so sorry I didn't get to meet any of you before that. But so very grateful to be here and really enjoying everybody's reading. It's beautiful. Okay, all right, thank you. This one is called No Returns. I never thought of you as the burrito type, but there you sat on that bench in the park under the oak tree, tearing at cheap silver foil with your long black fingernails, while disobedient beans tumbled away. And you didn't even care when they landed on that peach-colored skirt that came from Saks, because it was funny what he just said. It must have been funny because you laughed, a little too bubbly, with just enough jiggle to make his mouth twitch before he leaned in and you welcomed his kiss. And that's when I turned up Main Street, thinking today I'd get soup or maybe a salad for lunch instead of a burrito. And maybe tonight, when turning out the light at bedtime, I would ask if you had kept my receipt for that skirt. Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Okay. So our next reader is the wonderful Robin Gabbert, and her poem is Pawpaw, and it's on page 90.
Thank you, Les. Well, my poetic New Year's resolution this year was to be honest in my poems. So this is one example, Pawpaw. When Pawpaw was young, he looked like Sean Connery. Dark hair slicked back and a smile that said, "I'm all that," and whipped cream on top. A few decades later, he was rail thin, shoulders hunched, wrist bones sticking out of his cuffs, no hair to speak of. We grandkids tiptoed around him. He teased my little sister when she found a sparkling black rock, just sure it was black gold. He told her, "No, that's a pig turd." And he laughed and laughed. She held her ground, mumbling, "No, it's black gold." Then he went to stoke the fire in the big rusty oil drum where he burned the trash every day. He died when I was 11. I was sobbing after the funeral. My mom was touched. I was just sad that we missed the school play. I had a lead role and the funeral had taken all day.
Our next reader is Brad Hodge. It's Brad, and his poem is called Self-Portrait, and it's on page 101. Sorry.
Thank you, Les and Fran, for including me in this and encouraging my drive up from Foster City. So I'm a Peninsula French member. My poem is Self-Portrait. I used to be part French horn and great blue heron, mountains in Kentucky and the desert in New Mexico. I know this because each of these tokens have taken a piece of me, like vapor off dry ice. I know these parts of me are gone because I can no longer find them when I search for them. Only the negatives of memory remain, like stains on shirt collars or coffee mug. The experience leaving its mark before being consumed, digested, and breathed back into the air.
Our next reader is Dr. John Jackson, and his poem is The Long Mountain Alive, and you can find it on page 103. Oh, I have something to say.
Oh, okay.
And this is the first year I didn't take his last stanza away.
I'm learning. I'm John Jackson, and this poem is called The Long Mountain Alive. Now, I have to say at the beginning that this poem is about lava. It's about the volcano. It's not about fires. And, you know, those of us from Hawaii, we're used to lava that wipes out villages, fills in bays, changes the whole landscape of the countryside. That's nature. These fires did not come from nature on the island of Maui. And there's hundreds of people still missing, and I dedicate this reading to them. The Long Mountain Alive. Pele is the earth-eating woman, goddess of the sacred land. She's eating mana, life, as she stirs it now anew. Pele speaks to my treasured things, the eternity I've ever known. Such I hold in deepest value, she takes with warm embrace. Pele lives in my deepest dreams, stirring, slashing, awakening. Jealous for my lasting love, she burns away all false desire. Pele is born of fertility, Alone she stokes her long canoe and gives birth to fire, then dances hula like lava.
Okay, our next reader is Carl Katie. We're just going to do 3 more and then we're going to take a half-hour break. So, Carl's poem is called Bliss, and you can find it on page 109.
That was good. Really good.
Hello everyone, I'm Carl Katie, and the poem is Bliss. I paddle farther than intended, outside the circle of manageable risk. My surfboard is a fragile arc. An upsurge could separate us, casting me beyond sight of shore, or sweeping me into the hurtful rocks, unable to climb or swim to safety. The pungent fragrance of life-rich ocean, the brisk water and chilled air dancing on my skin, and calls of seals and seagulls punctuating time. I am intoxicated, without the drag of any drug, as if the sea were dreaming me into place. There is still day left, though sunset began an hour ago. As I wait for the right wave, the tides shimmer, bioluminescence from energized plankton emitting light across the moving sea. Then I see a giant wave, white crusted from glowing plankton and the rising moon. I feel the insatiability of a dream, the hunger for a moment unwrapped from the past. I pray I have the courage and skills to stand and ride the wave home. That the now bright moon can guide me to that thin heart of sand, the golden beach where it all began. Thank you.
Killed it.
Just in time.
Our next reader, is it dead?
No.
No. Our next reader is Chrissy Langwell, and her poem is Faith, and it's on page 129. But what I want to say about Chrissy is that she's a magician. Whatever you need to have happen with the board, or whatever's, you name it, she'll get it done, and it will be done brilliantly.
I'm Chrissy Langwell. My poem is Faith on page 129. You speak of faith like it's a simple thing, but it spears me to my core, and the chasmal wound leaks from my eyes. I cry over everything these days. The way the fog hugs the tree line on a quiet spring morning. The moment my aloof cat decides my fetal position is her resting spot. The thought of my husband's side of the bed remaining untouched. Or the day my last child leaves home for good. But mostly I cry over the faith I left behind, over those I wish to forget, and for those who forgot me a bit too easily. It will always be the ornate stained glass, the musky smell of incense, the resonant sound of the choir emulating seraphim in the rafters. It will always be the well wishes, the sense of belonging, the intertwining of our lives through shared beliefs. What once was Maundy Thursday is now Black Saturday, when the world sits in the shadow. I will always be here in the waiting. In my spirit, once tethered, now wanders this variable land, searching for something to cling to, missing that whisper of time when everything made sense. Now that I've tasted the pomegranate, I can never go back. And yet, here I am, listening to your faith. For a moment I'm jealous that you stand where I stood, that you don't know what I know. My tears both cleanse and drown me, washing my wounds with their stinging salt and I hastily brush them aside, hoping you won't notice. How do you not notice? Yet you keep talking, even as the current between us grows, but your hand rests on my arm, and I picture God herself letting me know my tears belong, and so do I.
Our next reader is Sean Langwell. Sean is a past president of Redwood Writers, and he's also another miracle. His poem is Who Are You? And it's on page 132.
So just a real quick backstory on this. This poem was based on a true story of an event that happened when my aging stepfather, who is no longer with us, had gone into a state of age-related dementia. And my mom had been recovering from a surgery on her neck. And this is a poem dedicated to both of them. It is called, my name is Sean Langwell, and it is called Who Are You? I watched, a silent observer, waiting for a flicker of familiarity to return. I am your wife, said she with a tone like a familiar song, hoping the waves would penetrate the foggy memories of her husband of 28 years. You're not my wife, he barked. Yes, I am. Don't you remember when we danced beneath the harvest moon? A lighter shade of pale, blasting across the meadow? Annie and Philip and Steve, plus your kids and mine showering us with pink rose petals. Remember? He eyed the white socks slipping off his right foot, shaking his head. Bending, he fumbled to tighten loose laces of the weathered boot upon the other foot. My wife got me these boots, he declared, at the Army surplus store. Where's my flight jacket? It's time to fly. I could still take off from that flight deck, you know. It's like riding a bike or sex. And after the wedding, said she, not missing a beat, we honeymooned in Mendocino while watching for whales and sipping coffee, smelling the salty sea. I love that smell, especially returning from a mission at dawn, he trailed off again. She bent at her narrow waist, voluptuous cleavage heaving beneath her summer top, and kissed him, soft lips upon his stubbled cheek. He leaned back, head tilted, with a smirk. Hey, I know you. You're my wife. And I always will be till death do us part. Have you seen my keys? I want to go for a drive.
How about a round of applause for our first half poets? We're going to take a break for 30 minutes, but Linda has something she wants to tell you.
I just wanted to say that we have two people here who drove to be here from Modesto. Girls, will you stand up? Go ahead, stand up. They got here late. They said, "Oh, I'm sorry we're late." I went, "Well, where did you come from?" Modesto. I go, "Wow." Okay, 30 minutes, and then we'll start again. Thanks.
Meet
Okay, I'll try not to be afraid of the microphone. How's that? Good. Okay. Well, my poem is about August and about gardens, so seemed like a good choice for today. I do not travel far in August when squash unfurls stars in my garden, when tomatoes come out of hiding, ornamenting pole beans and peppers with red ripeness. When zinnias parade on long stems, each flower proclaiming summer will not end. When maidenhair mounds in the cool moist corner and the shiny black skink peeks out. When each gaze in my garden fills me, I do not travel far in August. Very nice. Thank you.
Our next poet is Brian McSweeney. His poem is Manzanita, and it's on page 161. Does anybody know whose glasses these are? Sorry, I'll get out of your way in a minute.
Hi, I wrote this poem back in 2009 when I was going through 5 months of chemotherapy, and I would go out to Foothill Regional Park up in Windsor, just kind of hang out there every day. So this is about the trees in that park, which unfortunately in the Kincaid fire about 3 years ago, a lot of them burned down. So the poem's kind of dedicated to those trees. So, Brian McSweeney, Manzanita. Who carved you, Manzanita, your slender mahogany hues, your trunk twisting, arching, curving, delicate arm tendrils crowned in pale green? Light and shadow dance on your lovely burgundy skin, inviting me to stop, linger, touch, to run my fingers across the smoothest surface, run my cheek across a cool, hard limb. Your dense flesh lies close to the ground, in possession of earth, water, sunlight. I walk along the lakeside trail, early morning mist on the lake, the dread of my human affairs. I run my hands over your spiraling knots and pray, dear mother, don't let your son forget your beauty ever.
Our next poet is Hillary Moore, and her poem is An Old Cowboy Goes to Yoga, and it's on page 164. Hillary, oh, there you are. Sneaking up.
Hillary Moore, An Old Cowboy Goes to Yoga. True story. An old cowboy goes to yoga. Long before I knew him, this Midwestern rebel drank and smoked and played his way across the country. Along the way, he was a husband, father, airman, honky-tonk and rodeo cowboy with inquiring mind and a Peter Pan soul. He ran himself ragged, broken bones, torn heart, crushed lungs, and ever giving till depleted. Still, the mind expanding, reaching, teaching. I met his shell and knew at once I would have loved him fiercely in the past. We would have danced the nights away and likely would have broken hearts, mine and his as well. Why yoga? Why now? On his way downhill, something made him change his mind, decide to live some better time, whatever's left, to stretch, to breathe, to be. I too am breaking down. So now what's left for us is friendship, deep, wide, easy. When we hug goodbye, the strength still in his hands gives me a thrill, reminds me how I wish I'd been his someone. I treasure what we have and miss the past we never shared.
The next reader is Pat Obachowski, and her poem is called On the Serengeti, and it can be found on 167.
Hi everyone, my name is Pat Obachowski. I am a proud member of the San Francisco Peninsula California Writers Club. And I'm here from Foster City. And I want to announce this is my very first published poem and my very first official reading.
And that's out of 806 poems to select.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. So my poem is titled On the Serengeti. I feared him before I smelled him. I smelled him before I heard him. I heard him before I saw him. I heard the rustle on the land. I turned to look, and there he was, hungry for fresh meat. I saw his muscles tense and knew he would make his move. He ran, and as his speed picked up, I cried out to the herd, "Run, run, mothers, fathers, protect your children. Run, the lion is hungry." As the protector of this herd, I knew we could outrun him, most of us. We ran as the spirits guided us. We ran for our survival. Then I heard it, the screech of a young one, the screech of the one who could not outrun. I knew the lion's want for fresh meat had been savagely satisfied. We slowed, we stopped, we bedded down near still water, we slumbered. I walked our perimeter and bowed to the mother and the father for the loss of their calf. They cried in the night. I rested and thought, someday that will be me. Someday I will no longer be the strongest, the fastest, the most alert and agile. Someday I will be running from the hungry lion as fast and hard as I can, but not fast nor hard enough. I will be the one the young lion will take down. I will satisfy its lust for fresh meat. I will be the one sacrificed for the sake of the herd. I will be the one they will cry for in the night.
Okay, the next poem is called Dances with Bees, and it's from Joan Osterman, and it can be found on page 172.
Thank you.
John, we have to get this really low.
Thank you.
Lower than me.
How's that? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, I was writing a lot of villanelles last summer, kicking them out, and this one I wrote for pure pleasure. So, my name is Joan Osterman, and it's called Dances with Bees. She skips outside and gossips with the breeze. Her garden always grows in disarray. She paints herself in stripes to dance with bees. From roots to crown, she'll branch with redwood trees. You may not understand, but it's her way. She skips outside and gossips with the breeze. Her flowers relish time with her and tease. With sweet and fruity colors they display. She paints herself in stripes to dance with bees. In sun or clouds or rain or sleet, at ease, she hums along, views lightning as ballet. She skips outside and gossips with the breeze. Banana slugs will bring her to her knees. What conversation happens, she won't say. She paints herself in stripes to dance with bees. She frequents woods, absorbs their harmonies that soothe, that smooth the edges of the day. She skips outside and gossips with the breeze, and paints herself in stripes to dance with bees. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, now it's our darling Linda Loveland Reed. And her poem is And Yes, There Are Roses, and it's on page 180. And she's starting to read something different than she printed up, because she's Linda Loveland Reed.
Okay, now I feel just stupid. Okay, I'm going to read Exact Right Life. It's on page 181. It's just right next to the one I said I was going to read. A strangeness stalks me. The first time in forever, I think of something dropped into the dark. Maybe even into Plato's cave, or perhaps into my own mind. I believe there is more. I want the corners of my life to turn pink as I go to the sunset. I want my dyed blonde hair not to fall out before I make it to the end. Somewhere between tears and coffee, I need to find the exact life. To fly toward the sun, to hell with waxed wings. Let the cup spill, the juice stain. I want to drown in endorphins. I need to see myself, to know these last years are right. Taste the morning blue of the sky. Love my one life. Oh, and did I say I'm coming back?
Our next reader is Margaret Rooney. Where is Margaret?
Right there.
Oh. Well, okay. Wait, I'm going to make it tall.
I wish you would.
What have you last what?
My last
Rodeo?
Oh my gosh, it's so wonderful to see you. This makes me very happy. Of sunlight and shadow.
Name
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, my name is Margaret Rooney. And my poem is Of Sunlight and Shadow, and it's 183. Is that good? Of sunlight and shadow. Satin shine of curtains, draped bright and dark. Gray shadows curl in cream fabric. Sheen of polish on carved satinwood stools, their grain like golden tides receding. Pools of sunlight pinpoint small intricacies in an Indian carpet, hand-knotted of blue and amber silk. The skull of her face in a black and white drawing holds a sharp gleam like thin bones of angels. Our lives are framed by birth and death. What will the next resurrection be? Bring us. What will the next resurrection bring us? As we move like reflections through time, out of the room of objects into the white wind of eternity. Thank you.
I was concerned you were looking at me to answer that question. So our next reader is the most fabulous Joanne Smith. Woo-hoo! Get over here. Say your name.
My name is Joanne Smith, and my poem, Open, is on page 192. Consider things that open. Jars, windows, lights, roads, faucets, awnings, elevators, wounds, anemones. Clouds open for rain, fall on open flowers, doors to neighbors, strangers, and trick-or-treaters, minds to wisdom, hearts to love. Revelations of truth and myth written on walls, hidden in shadow, behind closed blinds, reveal pathways to courageous conversion when they open. Contemplate the pill bug, a roly-poly creature, its back crinkled like a lobster tail. Touch it, and afraid, it rolls into a ball. Undaunted and curious, it opens like an unclenched fist.
Our next reader is Steve Trenham. Come on, Steve.
Well, there was supposed to be somebody before me.
Wow. Yeah, maybe there was, but that person is sick.
I'm sorry.
But, Steve, you're worth waiting for. Steve's poem is called Still Life, and it's on page 210.
208.
This may be my first opportunity to tell Les that she's wrong. My poem is on page...
Joy.
What is it?
208.
208, not 210.
Well, excuse me.
I'd first like to thank the person who brought the chicken wings for redecorating my favorite silk shirt. There are a number of things to love about Fran Claggett Holland. And one of them is that she notices movement in Cézanne's paintings, even the still lifes. And in point of fact, Cézanne, in a still life with apples on a table, used to insert coins underneath each apple, making it tilt so that to the viewer, if looked at closely, it would seem as though it were about to roll off of the damn table. So this poem is dedicated to Fran. And I don't know how I landed in this folder, but there's Cézanne. Get a collection of glasses up here.
There are people in here. These are glasses.
Well, I'll keep mine on. Still life. I am thinking of Henry Moore, of roots tunneling through stone, when my chair shifted slightly, when I did not. To my right, branches of Meyer lemons tap at my window. Dishes in the sink rattle a little. But I am not alarmed until the sudden splash behind me. A stream is flowing under the bridge in a painting, only now it spills over the edge of its frame. Leaping up, I grab this favorite Cézanne off the wall and rush it outside to flow into my yard. I return to the flooded room and notice another Cézanne, apples on a slanted desktop, whose fruit now yields to gravity, rolling off, bouncing along the floor to gather at the front door. When I let the apples out, standing before an easel amid beckoning blooms of lavender, is Cézanne, endowing the life of his canvas with the movement of bees. Thank you.
Our next poet is Charlotte Tressler, and it's A Time When, on page 211, I hope.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Tressler, and I'm reading A Time When, which I wrote actually a long time ago. Wait, come back. Stay with me just a little while. Embrace me, adore me like you used to. There was a time when you couldn't get enough of me. A time when my absence made you cry. I couldn't wait for a time when we'd part ways with a smile, for you to skip away carefree and strong. But now, when I say goodbye, you reply, whatever, tone sullen, eyes on the ground. And I wonder what I was thinking, wanting you to grow up.
And that little boy just turned 28 last week. And he's turned out to be a great guy. And he doesn't roll his eyes at me anymore at all.
Our next reader is Judith Bourne, and Judith Bourne is going to be reading her poem Quotidian on page 213, and she will also be reading Nathaniel Robert Winter's poem, and I'm not sure exactly which one it is and what page it is, but she's reading for him.
He left?
Okay. So do you want to read it anyway? Go ahead.
Read it anyway, and I'll tape it.
We're going to read it anyway, because he wasn't feeling well, so.
So you're both short.
It's okay, I'm short.
Okay, I am too. I had tall shoes on. I'm Judith Vaughn, and my poem is Quotidian.
Near your mouth.
What?
It needs to be near your mouth or they can't hear you. There you go.
How's that?
Better.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Judith Vaughn, and my poem is Quotidian. It's on page 213. Quotidian. In poets' minds, cascades of words stream into their lifeblood. Expression waits for an ordinary sound, a smell, an image to burst forth onto a white page. A homeless woman sits on a curb of a screaming urban street, teeming with life. Snow falls, quiet life, around her. Nowhere to go. 12 stories up, a heated apartment. A poet watches tragedy unfold, translates anguish, words on a white page, hot with outrage, unlike cold in a winter storm. A young woman in red-heeled boots runs across an urban street, falls in the path of an oncoming bus. A poet's hand reaches out, pulls her to the sidewalk from certain death, both unnamed, unharmed, but not forgotten. Her brush with mortality translated onto a white page. People find their way through urban streets to gardens nestled between towering buildings. Bright gold and orange koi swim in pools, surrounded by flowers and trees and glass. A poet sits on a bench, sees the overlooked, hears the overheard. The details of daily life burst forth onto a white page. Thank you. My name is not Robert Nathaniel Winters, but I'm reading this poem. It's called Time in Teapots, and it's on page 219. Time in teapots. Some people are frozen in time, like John F. Kennedy or Marilyn Monroe, alive back in the 60s, never to get old. When I left home at 18, Cousin Abby was a little girl doing the teapot dance in the living room of our youth. Yet the spell can be broken. Time can race ahead. Just because you didn't notice, the clock keeps ticking. Dr. Abby came to visit last week with her second husband, and stories of her 3 adult kids. Time played its game. Crows walked on our faces. What doesn't die young grows old. Little teapot illusion lies shattered on the living room floor. Robert Nathaniel Winters.
Okay, we have a couple of people who called this morning or wrote this morning saying that they were sick and couldn't come. So we've added a couple of people unalphabetical. But I must always apologize to my darling Jamie Zukowski because she's always bringing up the rear, except not today. Jamie's poem is called Never Lost, and it's on page 221.
Congratulations, poets, and thank you, editors. My name is Jamie Zukowski, and my poem is entitled Never Lost, and it's written in the form of an epistle to my oldest son who struggles with addiction. Always, when our moon matures to fullness, I sense the cord between us close. You, firstborn child, now a man far from home. From earliest sight you looked to the stars, when the distance you saw eclipsed my own. I don't know if that closest orb interests you now, though I whisper good night to you each time I see the advent of its comfort, feel its serene light. Pray for you these nights at winter's peak to see our moon in greatest splendor, ripe in possibility. Replay the words of my last letter in my mind. Repeat those wishes I've always hoped for you. Near dawn, I wake to someone knocking in my dream, a cue before the moon slides out of sight. Your dad wakes me to see the perfect ball of light through our window from the west. At once, I recognize this moon's message from you, a response graced with forgiveness, the acceptance of letting go, letting be. With eagerness, I step outside to view our horizon without barrier of walls and glass. The moon, now gone, the cold, dark sky, a void. Bereft, my joy drains, replaced with panic. How could this be? A sudden rush of wind and cloud? Did time pass so quickly the wondrous moon has left? I rush up the steps and back inside to search again, to stand right where your parents saw the sight. And there it is, in former glory, unchanged, the full, ripe glow, a porthole through a frigid sky. There I see. It was where I stood, made me think our moon had gone. Standing low on the gray pavement outside our home, I lost perspective to believe all could disappear. It is time. I embrace each appearance, the waxing assurance, whatever the future to be. You are never lost when I hold the patience to see.
Our next poet is not in your program, but she is going to be reading, and her name is Patty Cannon. And Patty's from, where are you from, Patty?
Marin.
You're from Marin, the outskirts of Marin, like myself. And I don't know what she's reading or what page, but she's going to tell you.
Well, congratulations, everyone. It's such a beautiful publication, isn't it? And such an act of love. And thank you so much for this beautiful place to read. So my poem is on page 59, and it's called Montenegro, and it's dedicated to two people that I love dearly. The sun rests its tired head on the mountainous curves of Montenegro. Its bronze heart aims arrows of yearning at the Adriatic Sea. The dancer of Budva pleads with the wind to return her sailor to her side. but her words break against the rocks while onlookers throw invisible flowers at her feet. This local legend about loyal love stirs something within me, but it's too much for me to bear. So I pluck mementos like low-hanging fruit at tourist stands. When my friend says Montenegro doesn't hide its light, I see her, the woman who dances at the seaside with her outstretched arm reaching toward the expanse. As I sail away, she calls out to me over many waters and inspires me to step out of the shadows and into a whole-souled life.
And last but not least, Roger Lubeck, my therapist. I'm not sure what he's going to read, but I'm sure it's going to be wonderful, and he will tell you the page number.
Do I have to?
Or else.
It's nice. Sort of a warning. All on tape. So, Linda Reed set the tone of just changing it up and, reading something else, which I'm not going to do. But I am going to tell you about something else. So on page 151, I have a poem that's called No Answers. And I'm not going to read it because I think it won't make as much sense as the poem Tapestry that I'm going to read. But the poem No Answers was written in response to a friend of mine from 50 years, a first girlfriend, who had a reunion that we had 2 years ago, the 10 of us that are still together as friends. She said to me, "Why the hell were you so mean to me?" And I've been trying to answer that question for 2 years. And this poem's one of those answers. So you can read that later.
Or you can see Roger later.
Yeah, there you are. Okay, Tapestry. The threads of a life, fabric made from blood and flesh, sinew and tendons, weft-faced weavings tie the warp, loom of cartilage and bone. Woven together, the pattern tells the story. Life's a tapestry.
Wow.
No, stop.
Okay, wait. I would like to show you guys these. These. No takers? Oh, okay. I was just told that Fran would like to read.
Oh, nice. Oh.
Thank you, Les. It's so lovely to see everybody here. Yeah, I will speak up, right? And read a poem from the book. I'm going to read a poem written for another poet. Her name was Adrienne Marcus. She was a fabulous poet, lived in Marin County. And here's my poem for her, one of many. How is it that I cannot remember?
Fran, what page? What page?
66, for Adrienne Marcus. Can you hear?
Yes.
How is it that I cannot remember who is living, who is dead? Reading your poems tonight, I want to write back as I used to do. to question a word, to marvel at a phrase, to wish once again I had written that. I am tempted to claim your poems that live in my computer as my own. They are there, magically, some finished, perfect. Others only a hint of what they might have become, if only. If only you had had time to finish them. If only they had been collected into another book. But here they are, morning pieces that appeared as soon as I opened my computer, my email. Sometimes just the poem, sometimes a line, like there is something wrong with the last stanza. I return to that stanza again and again. I make suggestions, make it work, send it back, hoping I have gotten it right. But when I read it again, the stanza remains the same. Your unfinished poems live on, waiting, waiting.
Okay, we're very close to the end. We have a couple of things that have to happen. First of all, Sherry Lovler's beautiful cover for her book. She has prints that are available. Sherry, can you just stand up so people can see who you are? If you're interested in getting a print of Sherry's thing, find her. Okay, and we probably will be able to put it in the Redwood Writers Digest with her contact info. So that's a possibility. Okay, one of the things that when I first started to go to writing groups, my kids would say, "Mom, what do you do there?" And I said, "Well, we come there and we sit in a circle and then we take off all our clothes. And when we're finished doing that, we take off all our skin." And that's what it is to be a poet. It's to live from the inside out. And I cannot say how much I appreciate your hearts on the outside and how it is that you express yourself and how it is that you go up against the fear of rejection, because God knows we get rejected so much, but that you're still willing to take your truth, put it in stanzas, get a haircut from me, and you know, be willing to risk everything to be published. And sometimes this is the first publication for someone, or the first time they've ever stood up in front of a group of people and shared what's inside themselves. So I have to say that I applaud each and every one of you. I am honored to be your editor. I am humbled to shepherd your work into print with, God bless Joanne Rosen, her patience. And I just thank you so much. So now, Judy Baker, who is our president of Redwood Writers, has something she wants to say. And don't go away, because Linda will be sending us home. Thank you. Oh, I have to stay here.
You have to stay here.
Okay. We're both short.
I know.
I'm sure.
When Les and Fran offered to do yet another poetry anthology, we had no idea what was going to happen with this outpouring of love from all the chapters. And they got this book ready to go in less than 6 weeks, even though there were 806 poems submitted. They were diligent at looking at every single poem when it was submitted, going through the rubric and making sure that they picked the best of the best, and that is what you represent. I am just thrilled that we were able to have the biggest anthology we've ever published. Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you who are members of other chapters of the California Writers Club, I just want to invite you to come to other events that we have. We have online meetings, which we're going to open back up to being on Zoom, and there are some that are recorded already for your consumption. We're going to have a conference next year, and Sean's already working on that. And in December, if you've got an idea for a costume, you better start getting ready for that, because I'm a tough act to follow. We are going to have a costume party, and we're going to be talking about memoir. So if you've got ideas, we want to hear them. We are all about writers helping writers. And thank you all for showing up today.
Well, it takes a village, and we have a wonderful village. We've all been friends for so many years. It's kind of scary to even look at how many years that's been, but it's been wonderful. So thank you for coming. A little shameless advertisement. I'm directing a reading of Our Town, which opens at the Polyclass Theater in Petaluma on Thursday, and will run Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I hope that some of you will be able to make it.